In Japan, there is a stomach medicine called Seirogan, and it was originally named after the idea of conquering Russia. The medicine first started being sold in 1902 by a pharmacy in Osaka, 2 years before the Russo-Japanese War even started. The formula was based on wood creosote, which was a substance that came into Japan in the 1800s via the Netherlands. It was originally used for gastrointestinal problems, and if you're wondering why I'm telling you about this weird pill, it's because of the name. The original civilian name was Chuyu Seirogan, which roughly means loyal and brave conquer Russia pill. Sei meaning to conquer or subjugate. Ro is shorthand kanji for Russia, taken from the longer Russia, an old phonetic rendering of Russia. And maru, or gan, which is used in the name of a lot of pills because, well, they're around. So altogether, it's the Conquer Russia pill, which is a very confident name given it was just for stomach problems. You would expect it to be some, superhuman enhancement drug, but no. By 1902, anti-Russia sentiment in Japan had been building quite a lot. After Japan won the First Sino-Japanese War in 1895, there was a lot of territorial disputes, and it was obvious that a war of some sort was going to come. And them starting to sell that pill in 1902 appears to have been a good decision because in 1904, the war actually started. The army adopted the formula and issued it to soldiers with the name Conquer Russia. Records from the Japanese Army's medical history proves that it was handed out to soldiers in order to stop infections from contaminated water. But it proved to be far more useful than just some field remedy. And after the war ended, the medicine spread to households in Japan, and along with it came the name. But later on, that would become a problem, because after Japan lost World War II, they started changing some things. For instance, in 1949, when the government said it was diplomatically inappropriate to have a pill named Conquer Russia. It might not foster the best relationship between the two countries when every Japanese household has this product in their home. So the name was changed, not really by choice, but because the government said so. So they ended up switching Sei for conquer to Sei being righteous. So now it's the Righteous Russia pill, although it still reads the exact same way because the two kanji have the same reading. I personally don't really care for the name change in principle, but what I do find really cool is that you can change the name like that because kanji. The name is still going to be the same in everyday speech, except now they just don't have to worry about the diplomatic relations, as stated before. And it actually does keep a lot of the brand recognition intact because you can still go to your pharmacy and say, I want Seirogan. And they would say, oh, okay, we know what you're talking about. You don't have to create an entire new brand overnight. And overall, it's just pretty cool. So yeah, they just slid a different kanji in there, that way the government doesn't behead them for ruining relations. Though one company did decide to push their luck, and kept the original Conquer Russia name. They still sell the medicine under the original characters. I do respect the commitment, and they seem to be fine in the long run. And while everyone else switched to using the righteous kanji, one company did not like this. Daiko Pharmaceutical, which had inherited the manufacturing rights, registered the trademark previously. Their idea was to own that name exclusively. Though there is a problem. It had been so many years since the medicine had actually been created, there were a ton of companies making the medicine, but not only that, using the name. And the final straw there is that the name had become so generic that it was just basically a word for creosote stomach medicine. It was no longer really just one brand. And given that there were many companies producing under this name, they obviously weren't just going to give it up because that would probably ruin their companies. So some of Daiko Pharmaceutical's competitors filed to have their trademark invalidated. The patent office, for some reason, originally rejected that and kept their patent in place. But after some time, it went to the Tokyo High Court, which in 1971 declared that the name had become generic. Maybe if they had that trademark 50 years earlier, it would be fine. But by the time they did it in the 50s, it was way too late. Meaning the invalidation request never really should have been rejected, and even more on top of that, the trademark never should have been issued in the first place. And for some reason, 40 years later, Daiko came back and thought, I guess it'll work this time. And in 2008, they tried again, though the Supreme Court struck it down. I don't know why they even tried. It seems like just a waste of resources and time. And on that never had a chance side of trademark names, there's mahobin, the word for a vacuum flask, or as the Japanese name is translated, which sounds much cooler, a magic flask. With maho meaning magic or sorcery, similar to maho shoujo, and also bin just meaning bottle, so mahobin, magic bottle. It's called magic bottle because it magically keeps the temperature. Yeah, that's pretty much it. The name was adopted in 1911 by the first Japanese company to start manufacturing vacuum flasks. And they just didn't really attempt to register it as a trademark. So given that mahobin was probably many people's first introduction in Japan to a vacuum flask, And the fact that they hadn't made a trademark, it kind of just became the generic term. Basically the same exact scenario as the stomach medicine. And this is why you kind of have to at least try to trademark it, and you can't just leave it there. They gave it a really cool, good name, and then it just became everyone else's really cool, good name. And then there's Monpoke. Monpoke, Mon meaning 10,000, Po means step, which is the same character in Sanpo, going for a walk, and K, meaning a measuring instrument, a meter, or counter. So Monpoke is like a 10,000 step counter. A Japanese company called Yamasa managed to trademark it in 1960, and contrary to all the other ones, they actually did manage to keep it. Despite it probably sounding like the most generic name out of the ones I've said so far. I mean, it kind of just sounds like a description of what it can do. But similar to the other ones, it is seen as just a generic name no matter the manufacturer. Also, one little historical bit about this that's pretty cool is that it isn't just an interesting name, but it's kind of like a goal for someone to hit daily. Because of that name, 10,000 steps a day became a sort of health advice, despite that not really meaning to end up that way. Doctors have cited it, fitness apps have used it, and it's all basically just because of their advertising campaign. I'm sure that's not the only reason, 10,000's kind of just a nice round number for people to hit, but they definitely played a large part in that. And it is pretty cool that, like I said, after that, they were able to keep the trademark the whole time. And on the still protected but functionally genericized category, there are a few other examples. A Japanese stapler is called a hotchkiss. Hachikisu was an American company that imported their product in 1903. Much like the magic bottle, it was probably just a lot of people's first experience with a stapler, so they just started calling them a hotchkiss. The brand name actually itself got absorbed into the language. Nobody ever owned it in Japan, and it was never trademarked, so it just became the default. I do really find that concept of a loan word that comes from a brand name super cool. But Takubin is a very different case. Taku meaning home or residence, Q means urgent or express, and bin means delivery or service. Home Express Delivery Service. That is Yamato Transport's brand name, and they have tried very hard to defend it over the years. Again, a super generic sounding name that they are trying really, really hard to keep. Which I can kind of see why, that's probably very good for branding. Since it's been there so long, and when people just look up express delivery, your company is going to come up. So it's definitely worth fighting for. And something that makes these genericized names very cool from a media standpoint is that NHK and major news agencies actually have a sort of style guide that keeps them on track with how they're supposed to deal with these. They have to keep lists of what to swap out these names with, because the companies will go after them, and they have to if they want to keep their trademark. While it can be very good for branding, having your name all over because it's generic, they also have to remove the name as being generic. So it gets them less attention, but overall the attention wouldn't really matter if it became the fully generic term. For instance, Takubin becomes Takuhaibin, which is the actual generic name for a delivery service. And bidet toilet seats that Toto calls washlets, the generic term is a little bit longer than washureto, and instead is onsuisen jobenza, warm water washing toilet seat, which is technically correct, but don't expect anyone to say it if they don't have to. So even though those words are super common and that's how everyone would normally speak, they're not really allowed to use them. And even though nobody is saying that, they have to put it in the articles, or else the companies, again, will have to destroy them, or probably just have it removed from their article. And when they start fully losing the trademark, they have to attempt very strange things. Not a Japanese example, but I find the Velcro example very funny. I found this while researching genericide, which is the whole concept of the trademarked names becoming generic and them losing the trademark. Anyways, in 2017, Velcro released a music video. They were begging people to say hook and loop fastener instead of Velcro, because if people say Velcro to just refer to it, they're going to lose it eventually. I realized that most of the things that struggle with this problem don't have the name printed on them, and Google actually won a similar scenario. Someone was arguing that to Google has become a common verb, and it was generic. They were saying it just means to search the internet, not specifically Google. And then the court disagreed with them and said, no, it means to search Google. But that is the main legal test. Do people say it in just a generic way, or are they still talking about your company, and it's just really popular? When I say Velcro, I mean two things that stick together. When I say Google, I do not mean go search DuckDuckGo, I mean go search Google. And while all of these were so far about words that a company created for their product, what about a product that got its own name by the public? Well, it does actually go that other way, and that's common with foreign names that land in Japan. And probably the most popular example of this being Kit Kat. The chocolate bar arrived in Japan in 1973, and at the time, Kit Kat didn't really have a meaning, and it doesn't really have one in English either. But kitokato, the way Kit Kat sounds in Japanese, almost sounds like the phrase kitokatsu, which can be interpreted as you'll surely win or you'll surely succeed. And at some point, supposedly starting in Kyushu, people started giving students Kit Kat bars as sort of a good luck charm. Nestle had zero part in this, and it was all just to a coincidence in the pronunciation. I do find it funny that it has zero meaning in English where it came from, as Kit Kat is from England, I believe. But in Japan, not only did it get its own meaning, but it's got its own custom too. And Nestle, of course, wanting to make money, did lean into this in a bunch of different ways. And just generally, I think this contributed to Kit Kats becoming like the most popular chocolate in Japan, or at least most popular foreign chocolate, or their 2009 partnership with Japan Post, where you could mail someone a Kit Kat. So, genericide, a word losing its connection to a specific company. The company ends up with less control over what their name does in people's heads than they started with. But there is one more that I wanted to mention, Kawahara Toshio, a fishmonger in Fukuoka in the 1950s, who popularized mentaiko, spiced pollock roe, which has become very popular in Japan. He developed the recipe and chose not to trademark or patent it, and he ended up teaching it to the competitors on purpose. His thinking was that for mentaiko to become popular, everyone in Fukuoka had to be making it. If it was going to be known as Fukuoka's thing, it couldn't just be one single guy. And that industry is now worth over 100 billion yen, with not a single person owning that trademark. And that was the whole point of it, which I think is really cool. And it is a nice change of pace where most of the companies just kind of lost it on accident because they're stupid. This guy deliberately went out and just made something for everyone. Anyways, that's it. Thank you for watching. Please do like and subscribe. Thanks. Bye-bye.